Detroit Free Press, February 16, 1894. The second lecture of the Hindu monk, Swami Vivekananda, was given last evening at the Unitarian Church to a large and very appreciative audience. The expectation of the audience that the speaker would enlighten them regarding Hindu philosophy, as the lecture was entitled, was gratified to only a limited extent. Allusions were made to the philosophy of Buddha, and the speaker was applauded when he said that Buddhism was the first missionary religion of the world, and that it had secured the largest number of converts without the shedding of a drop of blood. But he did not tell his audience anything about the religion or philosophy of Buddha. He made a number of cute little jabs at the Christian religion and alluded to the trouble and misery that had been caused by its introduction into heathen countries. But he skillfully avoided any comparison between the social condition of the people in his own land and that of the people to whom he was speaking. In a general way, he said, the Hindu philosophers taught from a lower truth to a higher, whereas a person accepting a newer Christian doctrine is asked and expected to throw his former belief all away and accept the newer in its entirety. It is an idle dream when all of us will have the same religious views, said he. No emotion can be produced except by clashing elements, acting. It is an idle dream when all of us will have the same religious views, said he. No emotion can be produced except by clashing elements, acting upon the mind. It is the revulsion of change, the new light, the presentation of the new to the old, that elicits sensation. As the first lecture had antagonized some people, the Free Press reporter was very cautious. Fortunately, however, the Detroit Tribune consistently upheld Swamiji, and thus, in its report of February 16, we get some idea of his lecture on Hindu philosophy, although the Tribune reporter seems to have taken somewhat sketchy notes. Detroit Tribune, February 16, 1894. The Brahmin monk Swami Vivekananda again lectured last evening at the Unitarian Church, his topic being Hindu philosophy. The speaker dealt for a time with general philosophy and metaphysics, but said that he would devote the lecture to that part pertaining to religion. There is a sect that believes in a soul but are agnostic in relation to God. Buddhism was a great moral religion, but they could not live long without believing in a god. Another sect known as the Jains, believe in the soul, but not in the moral government of the country. There were several millions of this sect in India. Their priests and monks tie a handkerchief over their faces, believing if their hot breath comes in contact with man or beast, death will ensue. Among the Orthodox, all believe in the revelation. Some think every chord in the Bible comes directly from God. The stretching of the meaning of a word would perhaps do in most religions, but in that of the Hindus, they have the Sanskrit, which always retains the full meaning and reasons of the world. The distinguished Oriental thought there was a sixth sense far greater than any of the five we know we possess. The distinguished Oriental thought there was a sixth sense far greater than any of the five we know we possess. It was the truth of revelation. A man may read all the books on religion in the world and yet be the greatest blackguard in the country. Revelation means later reports of spiritual discoveries. The second position some take it is a creation without beginning or end. Suppose there was a time when the world did not exist. What was God doing then? To the Hindus, a creation was only one of forms. One man is born with a healthy body, is of good family, and grows up a godly man. Another is born with a maimed and crooked body and develops into a wicked man and pays the penalty. Why must a just and holy God create one with so many advantages and the other with disadvantages? The person has no choice. The evildoer has a consciousness of his guilt. The difference between virtue and vice was expounded. If God willed all things, there would be an end to all science. How far can man go down? Is it possible for man to go back to brute again? Kananda was glad he was a Hindu. When Jerusalem was destroyed by the Romans, several thousand Jews settled in India. When the Persians were driven from their country by the Arabs, several thousand found refuge in the same country, and none were molested. The Hindu believe all religions are true, but theirs antedates all others. Missionaries are never molested by the Hindus. The first English missionaries, mere prevented from landing in that country by English, and it was a Hindu that interceded for them and gave them the first hand. Religion is that which believes in all. Religion was compared to the blind man and the elephant. Each man felt of a certain part, and from it drew his conclusions of what an elephant was. Each was right in his way, and yet all were needed to form a whole. Hindu philosophers say truth to truth, lower truth to higher. It is an ideal dream of those who think that all will at some time think alike, for that would be the death of religion. Every religion breaks up into little sects, each claiming to be the true one and all the others wrong. Persecution is unknown in Buddhism. They sent out the first missionaries and are the only ones who can say they have converted millions without the shedding of a single drop of blood. Hindus, with all their faults and superstitions, never persecute. The speaker wanted to know how it was the Christians allowed such iniquities as are everywhere present in Christian countries. Evening News, February 17, 1894. I cannot comply with the request of the news to work a miracle in proof of my religion, said Vivekananda to a representative of this paper after being shown the news editorial on the subject. In the first place, I am no miracle worker, and in the second place, the pure Hindu religion I profess is not based on miracles. We do not recognize such a thing as miracles. There are wonders wrought beyond our five senses, but they are operated by some law. Our religion has nothing to do with them. Most of the strange things which are done in India and reported in the foreign papers are sleight-of-hand tricks or hypnotic illusions. They are not the performances of the wise men. These do not go about the country performing their wonders in the marketplaces for pay. They can be seen and known only by those who seek to know the truth, and not moved by childish curiosity. Detroit Free Press, February 18th, 1894. Swami Vivekananda, Hindu philosopher and priest, concluded his series of lectures, or rather sermons, at the Unitarian Church last night, speaking on the divinity of God. Actually, the subject was the divinity of man. In spite of the bad weather, the church was crowded. In spite of the bad weather, the church was crowded almost to the doors half an hour before the Eastern Brother, as he likes to be called, appeared. All professions and business occupations were represented in the attentive audience. Lawyers, judges, ministers of the gospel, merchants, rabbi, not to speak of the many ladies who have by their repeated attendance and rapt attention shown a decided inclination to shower adulation upon the dusky visitor whose drawing-room attraction is as great as his ability in the rostrum. The lecture last night was less descriptive than preceding ones, and for nearly 2 hours Vivekananda wove a metaphysical texture on affairs human and divine, so logical that he made science appear like common sense. It was a beautiful, logical garment that he wove, replete with as many bright colors and as attractive and pleasing to contemplate as one of the many-hued fabrics made by hand in his native land and scented with the most seductive fragrance of the Orient. This dusky gentleman uses poetical imagery as an artist uses colors, and the hues are laid on just where they belong, the result being somewhat bizarre in effect and yet having a peculiar fascination. Kaleidoscopic were the swiftly succeeding logical conclusions, and the deft manipulator was rewarded for his efforts from time to time by enthusiastic applause. The lecture was prefaced with the statement that the speaker had been asked many questions. A number of these he preferred to answer privately, but 3 he had selected for reasons which would appear to answer from the pulpit. They were: Do the people of India throw their children into the laws of the Do the people of India throw their children into the jaws of the crocodiles? Do they kill themselves beneath the wheels of the juggernaut? Do they burn widows with their husbands? The first question the lecturer treated in the vein that an American abroad would answer inquiries about Indians running around in the streets of New York, and similar myths which are, even today, entertained by many persons on the continent. The statement was too ludicrous to give a serious response to it. When asked by certain well-meaning but ignorant people why they gave only female children to the crocodiles, he would only ironically reply that probably it was because they were softer and more tender and could be more easily masticated by the inhabitants of the rivers in the benighted country. Regarding the juggernaut legend, the lecturer explained the old practice in the sacred city and remarked that possibly a few in their zeal to grasp the rope and to participate in the drawing of the car slipped and fell and were so destroyed. Some such mishaps had been exaggerated into the distorted version from which the good people of other countries shrank with horror. Vivekananda denied that the people burned widows. It was true, however, that widows had burned themselves. In the few cases where this had happened, they had been urged not to do so by the priests and holy men who were always opposed to suicide. Where the devoted widows insisted, stating that they desired to accompany their husbands in the transformation that had taken place, they were obliged to submit to the fiery test. That is, they must thrust their hands within the flames, and if they permitted them to be consumed, no further opposition was placed in the way of the fulfillment of their desires. But India is not the only country where women who have loved have followed immediately the loved one through the realms of immortality. Suicide in such cases have occurred in every land. It is an uncommon bit of fanaticism in any country, as unusual in India as elsewhere. No, the speaker repeated, the people do not burn women in India, nor have they ever burned witches. Proceeding in the lecture proper, Vivekananda proceeded to analyze the physical, mental, and soul attributes of life. The body is but a shell, the mind something that acts but a brief and fantastic part, while the soul has distinct individuality in itself. To realize the infinity of self is to attain freedom, which is the Hindu word for salvation. By a convincing manner of argument, the lecturer showed that every soul is something independent, for if it were dependent, it could not acquire immortality. He related a story from the old legends of his country to illustrate the manner in which the realization of this may come to the individual. A lioness leaping towards a sheep in the act gave birth to a cub. The lioness died and the cub was given suck by the sheep, and for many years thought itself a sheep and acted like one. But one day another lion appeared and led the first lion to a lake where he looked in and saw his resemblance to the other lion. At that he roared and realized El's full majesty of self. At that he roared and realized the full majesty of self. Many people are like the lion masquerading as a sheep and get into a corner, call themselves sinners, and demean themselves in every imaginable fashion, not yet seeing the perfection and divinity which lies in self. The ego of man and woman is the soul. If the soul is independent, how then can it be isolated from the infinite whole? Just as the great sun shines on a lake and numberless reflections are the result, so the soul is distinct like each reflection. Although the great source is recognized and appreciated, the soul is sexless. When it has realized the condition of absolute freedom, what could it have to do with sex, which is physical? In this connection, the lecturer delved deeply into the water of Swedenborgian philosophy, or religion, and the connection between the conviction of the Hindu and the spiritual expressions of faith on the part of the more modern holy man was fully apparent. Swedenborg seemed like a European successor of an early Hindu priest, clothing in modern garb an ancient conviction, a line of thought that the great of French philosophers and novelist Balzac saw fit to embody in his elevating tale of the perfect soul. Every individual has in himself perfection. It lies within the dark recess. A line of thought that the greatest of French philosophers and novelists saw fit to embody in his elevating tale of the perfect soul. Each individual has in himself perfection. It lies within the dark recesses of his physical being. To say that a man has become good because God gave him a portion of his perfection is to conceive the divine being as God minus just so much perfection as he has imparted to a person on this earth. The inexorable law of science proves that the soul is individual and must have perfection within itself, the attainment of which means freedom, not salvation, and the realization of individual infinity. Nature, God, religion is all one. The religions are all good. A bubble of air in a glass of water strives to join with the mass of air without. In oil, vinegar, and other materials of differing density, its efforts are less or more retarded according to the liquid. So the soul struggles through various mediums for the attainment of its individual infinity. One religion is best adapted to a certain people because of habits of life, association, hereditary traits, and climatic influences. Another religion is suited to another people for similar reasons. All that is best seemed to be the substance of the lecturer's conclusions. To try abruptly to change a nation's religion would be like a man who sees a river flowing from the Alps. He criticizes the way it has taken. Another man views the mighty stream descending from the Himalayas, a stream that has been running for generations and thousands of years, and says that it has not taken the shortest and best route. The Christian pictures God as a personal being seated somewhere above us. The Christian cannot necessarily be happy in heaven unless he can stand on the edge of the golden streets and from time to time gaze down into the other place and see the difference. Instead of the golden rule, the Hindu believes in the doctrine that all non-self is good and all self is bad. And though through this belief the attainment of the individual infinity and the freedom of the soul at the proper time will be fulfilled. How excessively vulgar, stated Vivekananda, was the golden rule, always self. Always self was the Christian creed, to do unto others as you would do. To do unto others as you would be done by. It was a horrible, barbarous, savage creed, but he did not desire to decry the Christian creed. For those who are satisfied with it, to them it is well adapted. Let the great stream flow on. And he is a fool who would try to change its course. When nature will work out the solution. When nature will work out the solution. Spiritualist, in the true acceptance of the word, and fatalist, Vivekananda emphasized his opinion that all was well, and he had no desire to convert Christians. They were Christians, it was well. He was a Hindu, that also was well. In his country, different creeds were formulated for the needs of people of different grades of intelligence. All this marking the progress of spiritual evolution. The Hindu religion was not one of self ever egotistical in its aspirations, ever holding up promises of reward or threats of punishment. It shows to the individual he may attain infinity by non-self. This system of bribing men to become Christians, alleged to have come from God, who manifested himself to certain men on earth, is atrocious. It is horribly demoralizing, and the Christian creed accepted literally has a shameful effect upon the moral natures of the bigots who accept it, retarding the time when the infinity of self may be attained.